Welcome, dear viewers, to Whatever You Need, the channel where stories breathe, where emotions unfold behind the silver veil of fame, and where truth often hides in the shadows between takes. Before we dive into today's extraordinary revelation, don't forget to subscribe to Whatever You Need, leave a like, and tap the join button to support our journey through the unspoken corners of celebrity life. Because today's story isn't about scripted romance, it's about two hearts, burdened by pride and silence, finding their rhythm again in the quietest moment imaginable. This is not just gossip. It's a story about the fragile humanity that hides behind the lights, the story of Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım. For weeks, whispers from the set painted a picture colder than any winter landscape. Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım, once so effortlessly in sync, were now two strangers bound by professional obligation. They spoke only when the scene demanded it, their eyes meeting only under the camera's command. To outsiders they were graceful, disciplined, the perfect example of professionalism. But to those who had spent long hours watching them move through the same space without truly seeing each other, the silence was suffocating. No one could pinpoint when it began, that subtle fracture between them, invisible at first, then widening until it became a chasm. Some said it was pride. Others, an old wound. Yet, none could deny that something powerful had broken, something that, paradoxically, made their performances even more electric, as if each withheld word charged the air between them with unbearable tension. And then came the moment that changed everything, a decision not of script or camera angle, but of heart and intuition. He knew that no amount of acting could replace authenticity. Without emotional truth, art becomes hollow. And so, one afternoon, under the pretext of discussing creative adjustments, he called Cemre and Gökberk into a private meeting. The lights were dimmed. The air was heavy. Behind the closed door, there were no cameras, no crew, no script to hide behind. When he finally spoke, his tone was calm but unyielding. Cinema, he said, is not about pretending. It's about feeling. You're both lying, not to me, not to the audience, but to yourselves. You once shared something real. Don't insult that truth by pretending it never existed. He reminded them of a scene they had filmed months earlier, a kiss so charged with genuine emotion that even the crew had fallen silent, stunned by the electricity of that moment. Then he asked, softly but firmly, "Do you really want to spend your lives acting as if that moment meant nothing?" The question hung in the air like an echo neither could face. Cemre lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing invisible lines on the table, while Gökberk, tense and motionless, stared at the floor as though searching for courage beneath it. Without waiting for answers, the director stood, told them he would leave them alone for a while, and walked out, closing the door gently behind him. Then, perhaps minutes later, or maybe hours, time seemed irrelevant, a single sentence broke through that silence. "I don't want to keep treating you like a stranger," Gökberk reportedly said. It was a phrase simple enough to be overlooked, yet so raw that it cracked something open inside the quiet. Cemre looked up, and for the first time in weeks, she met his gaze without defenses. No rehearsed lines. No masks. Only the recognition of someone who had been missed more deeply than words could express. There was no cinematic embrace, no dramatic confessions, only a quiet agreement, a truce built on honesty. From that moment, everything began to shift. Where there had been cold distance, now there was warmth, understated but unmistakable. They began greeting each other with gentle smiles. Their laughter, once carefully hidden, returned in fleeting bursts between takes. Their scenes took on new life. What had once felt mechanical now breathed with authenticity. Every shared glance carried weight, every pause between lines hummed with the invisible electricity of reconciliation. It wasn't acting anymore, it was something deeper, something alive. Crew members still recall the day that confirmed their reconciliation was real. It was a confrontation scene, one of raw anger and emotional collision. The dialogue demanded intensity, fury, heartbreak. Yet as they performed, something unexpected unfolded. The director didn't intervene. He understood that the real story, the one worth filming, was no longer in the script. It was happening right before him. Before we continue this emotional journey, take a moment to show your support. Hit the like button, subscribe to whatever you need, and if you believe in second chances and emotional truth, click the join button to help our channel grow. Because what you're hearing now isn't just a celebrity story, it's a lesson about the human heart, captured in the fragile space between pride and forgiveness. One evening, long after filming had wrapped for the day, a young production assistant returned to the set to retrieve a forgotten folder. The lights were mostly off, the soundstage empty, except for two figures sitting side by side on the edge of a half-dismantled set. It was Cemre and Gökberk. They spoke in hushed tones, their words too faint to be heard, but their body language told a story louder than any dialogue. He rose first, extended his hand to her, and when she took it, he didn't let go. For a few moments, they stood there in silence, holding hands under the dim light, the space between them filled with the kind of peace that follows storms. The assistant, watching from afar, would later tell others, you could see it, the way their eyes softened. It wasn't acting anymore. It was real. Soon, everyone on the production began to feel it. The technicians smiled knowingly when they passed. The makeup artists whispered that Cemre looked softer, happier. And even Gökberk, once reserved and guarded, had begun showing an ease that hadn't been seen in months. The director, quietly observing all this, began making subtle changes to the script, rewriting certain scenes to bring them closer together on screen, as though life itself was guiding the story's ending. He later joked to one of the crew members, sometimes, to save a film, you must first save its actors. That sentence spread like wildfire among the crew, and then beyond it. Soon, it became a legend of the shoot, a whispered story of how a director's intuition mended not only a movie but two human hearts. The public, of course, believed it was all strategy, a facade to maintain harmony during production. But those who were there knew better. Something had changed, quietly, irreversibly. They no longer entered the set separately. They no longer forced laughter or concealed glances. Their connection was effortless again, no longer a burden, but a rhythm rediscovered. Whether what blossomed between them was love reborn or simply deep understanding, no one could tell. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that they had rediscovered the courage to feel, and in doing so, gave new meaning to every scene they played. And so, dear viewers, the cameras kept rolling, but what unfolded behind them was far greater than any written story. Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım found something that many lose forever, the ability to forgive, to reconnect, and to let art heal what pride had broken. Perhaps this is why we love the world of cinema so much, not for its illusions, but for those rare moments when reality and fiction intertwine to reveal something deeply human. Thank you for joining us here on Whatever You Need. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the quiet power of reconciliation, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories that look beyond the spotlight. And remember, by clicking the join button, you can help us continue uncovering the human truths that hide behind fame's glittering curtain. Because sometimes, what happens off camera is the most beautiful story of all.